Family business. Look, all of us have issues with our family. Like, no family is perfect. And anybody who tries to make you think that their family is perfect is lying to you, and you should run from them as fast as you possibly can. I tell people often that, like, I grew up in chaos. Like, my mom was a child when she had me. She had just turned 18 years old, 3 weeks after I was born. And I know a lot of people out there might think that 18 means you're grown. 18 does not mean you're grown. You're still a child. There's still a lot for you to learn. There's still a lot for your brain to develop. Even your body isn't fully developed to adult size and adult functions. But I digress. So, growing up, there was a lot of chaos, right? So, we moved a lot as a kid. I'm a military brat. My mom left Birmingham, Alabama, moved us to Detroit, Michigan when I was 9 years old. 2 years later, at age 11, she met my stepfather, who was in the Navy. And it seemed like every 1 to 18 months, every 12 months to 18 months, we were moving again. Like, before I graduated high school, I had lived in 5 different states, just to show you how much we actually moved. And so it was hard for us to have relationships with family. I know some people might say, oh my God, like, that's an amazing thing that you got to travel so much. And there's pros and cons to it, right? I got to experience cultures, whether it's Hispanics or Asians, white, black, everywhere that I got to live. And the people that we became friends with, they became my family, because my, biological family, we became distant. We didn't see them on the holidays, or we missed a lot of birthdays. But one thing that I have learned is your family isn't always DNA, right? Family are people who believe in you. Family are people who love you regardless of what's going on. Family are the people who support you and take care of you. So, for example, my man Kay, he talks about how he helps his cousin in his business. And one of the things that I immediately, when he said it, I was like, oh my God, family business. Right? A lot of us talk about creating wealth. Well, guess what? If you want to create wealth, your family needs to be involved in it. Because if your family's not involved in you creating wealth, then the wealth is going to die when you die. It's impossible to create generational wealth where just the person who was creating it, they die, and then the government, federal or state level, takes over everything. Or even if they have some infrastructure in place and they plan to leave a legacy behind, they're going to leave all of their assets to a nonprofit organization that they feel, passionately about. Whereas if you do business with family, if you do life with family. Now, look, I understand that everyone in family isn't always going to be on the same page, right? Throughout the course of my journey, I've had several challenges when it comes to the relationships of members of my family. Not because I'm perfect or because they're perfect or anybody's right or wrong. It's just sometimes whenever we go through different things in our lives, we take on different paths. So, for example, when I got out of the military, I knew I could move back home to Birmingham, Alabama. I've got family members who are, been in a part of the city government of Birmingham for 30 some odd years. And I knew they could get me a job, whether that job was as a police officer or a firefighter or some kind of city worker. I knew I could go back and get a job. And I knew my family would do everything that they could to support me. But I knew that although I could have done all of those things, I chose to take a different path. I chose to say to myself that I'm going to rebuild my life without depending on my family. I'm going to rebuild my life and rebuild my finances without depending on my family. Now, did that make my journey a little bit harder than it probably could have been? Who's to say? But I will say to you that I now have a sense of ownership and responsibility to where I can't make an excuse or lean on my family when times get hard. This is the true definition and meaning of independence to me, where you're an independent thinker, you take independent action so that you can create your own independent freedom. And now, look, this doesn't mean that, my family is a bunch of bad people who you can't trust and you can't depend on. It's just that's a decision that I chose to make. Because, look, you also have to understand that your family can be your crutch. Your family can be the reason why you're not going to your next level. So, for example, a few years ago, we were living down in Tampa, and I hadn't been back home to see my mom's side of the family for a couple of years because just life, business, the virus, the vid, whatever we want to call it. But there was my grandmother's birthday was getting ready to come up. and we were calling to some different family members that we hadn't spoken to in a while, just to kind of, hey, we haven't talked in a while, let's catch up before we just, pop up at this family function. And I remember calling my uncle's wife, and she was someone, that I've always been able to talk to. We always had a great relationship. So I didn't think anything was wrong with reaching out to her just to have a quick catch up. And the conversation started off great. We were catching up. I was talking to her about some of the things that we had, been through and what we were doing. She was sharing some of the things that they were going through. And maybe my fault, but I started to ask and talk about the future. I started talking about, visions and plans and missions and legacy and generational wealth. And it felt like the conversation just all of a sudden shifted. Right? She started saying things like, oh, you think you're better than we are, or you're probably never going to come home and visit again because all of your success has you above everyone else. And I had never thought this. I had never even said any of this before. And so it hurt me. Like, it really hurt and cut me deep. And I started to really understand what they mean when they say crab in a barrel, right? If you've ever seen crabs in the bottom of a bucket, one crab is working to climb his or her way out of the bucket so that they can go and experience freedom. Well, all the other little crabs inside of the barrel are nipping at the legs of this crab, pulling that crab back into the bucket. Now, I'm not going to say that my uncle's wife is a crab because, I think that's kind of belittling. But what I will say is when you're on your journey and you're trying to level up and you're trying to be the one. So like for me, for example, I made a decision several years ago that I was going to be the one. I was going to be the first millionaire in my family. I'm going to be the first multi-millionaire in my family. And as long as I live long enough, I do believe that we can have a $100 million company, multiple $100 million companies, and ultimately become billionaires. Now, look, it might take us 30, it might take us 40 years, and it doesn't have to take that long. But what you have to do is you have to identify the family members that you're going to go on this journey on. Some of them will see it in the very beginning and some of them won't. Some of them, it might take them a few years. But always do everything that you do for your family. Like I recently became a grandfather back in March of this year. And everything that I do is for her. There was a time where I was just working, and I didn't have a face or a name to say why I'm doing all of this work for. And I don't expect for her to jump in and ever be in front of a camera or behind a microphone. But I do want to make sure that, one, I create a character and a legacy that leaves positivity in the minds of other people so that when she comes along and says, you know what, Jay Jackson is my grandfather, they can trust and believe that she has good values and a great character and trust that she's going to do what she says that she's going to do. Whatever she decides to do with her life, I want to create something to where whenever she says, hey, I want to participate in these extracurricular activities, or I want to graduate high school and travel abroad and go and experience Europe, right? I want to be able to be in a position to be able to say, whatever it is that you want to do, we can write the check. We can swipe the card, or we can do the wire transfer so that she could have the best opportunities to do the things that she wants to do in this life so she can live her best life. Do everything that you do for family. Nothing else matters. Family comes first, but that does not mean that you sacrifice your goals, your dreams, your soul, or who you are meant to become just for the sake of family. Support those that support you. Be friendly to those who are friendly to you. Love on those who are loving to you, and grow with those who want to grow. But at the end of the day, everything that you do has to be about family. Now, if you come from a large family and everybody loves each other and everybody's about growth, then guess what? The more wealth you and your family can create. If you come from a family to where you only have a handful of family members who want to be a part of your growth and your journey, then guess what? You're going to have a smaller amount of family members to take on the journey with you. But everything that you do has to be for your family. Because without family, we don't have a strong community. And we can bitch and we can complain about all the things that are negative and bad inside of our communities. And this could be if you're black or brown or white or Asian, it doesn't matter. Family comes first, because when we have strong families, we have strong communities. When we have a strong communities, we have strong states, we have strong countries, and the world will be a lot better. Take care of your family. Peace.